One of the most powerful earthquakes in over a decade struck off the coast of Russia, sending shockwaves across the entire Pacific Ocean. We're talking about an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, one of the top 10 strongest quakes recorded since 1900, and the aftermath affected millions of people across multiple countries. This wasn't just a story about Russia. Tsunami waves raced across the Pacific at jet speeds, threatening coastlines from Japan to Hawaii to the U.S. West Coast. Nearly 1 million people were placed under evacuation orders, and we saw dramatic footage of buildings being swept away by massive waves. We're going to break down everything that happened during this major disaster, the science behind why this earthquake was so dangerous, and how communities across the Pacific responded to one of the most significant seismic events in recent history. Let's start with the critical timeline. At exactly 11:24 a.m. New Zealand time, seismic stations detected a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake that struck off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. The quake hit at a depth of just 20 kilometers, and that shallow depth was crucial because it maximized the energy transfer to the ocean, creating devastating tsunami waves. Within minutes, tsunami warnings were issued across the entire Pacific Basin. We're talking about an area covering nearly half the planet's surface, with waves that traveled at speeds of up to 500 miles per hour in deep water. Let's start with ground zero, Russia's far eastern coast. The Kamchatka Peninsula sits about 6,500 kilometers east of Moscow, right in the heart of the Pacific Ring of Fire. This is where the Pacific Plate collides with the North American Plate, making it one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. The footage that came out of Russia was absolutely devastating. In the Kuril Islands, we saw buildings being completely swept away by the tsunami waves. The water rolled in like a massive wall, picking up everything in its path: cars, buildings, debris, and carrying it inland like it weighed nothing. One particularly heartbreaking piece of footage showed a kindergarten where the facade completely collapsed during the earthquake. Fortunately, the building was under repair at the time, so it was empty, but it gave a clear picture of the raw power involved. Russian emergency services reported that waves of 3 to 4 meters, that's 10 to 13 feet high, struck multiple coastal communities. Evacuation orders were issued immediately, and rescue teams assessed the damage and searched for casualties. What made this earthquake particularly dangerous was its location in the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. This underwater trench is where massive tectonic forces had been building up pressure for years. When that pressure finally released, it displaced enormous amounts of water on the ocean floor, creating the tsunami waves that followed. Interestingly, just 10 days before this major event, the same region experienced a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. Seismologists investigated whether that earlier quake was a foreshock to this much larger event, or if they were seeing a sequence of related earthquakes as the tectonic plates continued to adjust. The moment this earthquake struck, tsunami waves began radiating outward across the Pacific Ocean, like ripples from a stone dropped in a pond. Except these ripples traveled at the speed of a commercial jet. Japan, being the closest major population center, was hit first. The Japan Meteorological Agency immediately issued evacuation advisories for over 900,000 residents along the Pacific coast. They expected waves of up to 3 meters, and people took this seriously. The memory of the 2011 tsunami that killed over 15,000 people was still fresh in everyone's minds. We saw footage of Japanese coastal communities where people calmly but quickly moved to higher ground. The country's tsunami preparedness system, developed after the 2011 disaster, was put to the test, and it appeared to work effectively. But the waves didn't stop at Japan. They continued across the Pacific toward Hawaii, where the situation became increasingly tense. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center upgraded Hawaii from a tsunami watch to a full warning, the highest level of alert. The first waves were expected to hit Hawaii around 7:10 p.m. local time. Coordinating the evacuation of an entire island chain proved to be an enormous challenge. We saw footage of long lines of cars heading inland and to higher elevations as residents and tourists alike heeded the evacuation orders. What was particularly concerning about Hawaii was its position in the middle of the Pacific. The island sat directly in the path of tsunami waves from virtually any direction around the Pacific Ring of Fire. The waves had thousands of miles of open ocean to build energy before they reached the Hawaiian coastline. Governor Josh Green was clear in his messaging. These waves wouldn't just hit one beach and stop. They would wrap around the islands, potentially affecting coastlines that might normally be protected. The state's emergency management system treated this as a worst-case scenario. The U.S. West Coast was also placed under tsunami advisory. California, Oregon, and Washington all monitored the situation closely. While the waves were expected to be smaller by the time they reached the mainland U.S., authorities didn't take any chances. Coastal communities were advised to stay away from beaches and harbors. Alaska, being much closer to the earthquake's epicenter, was placed under full tsunami warnings. The state had experience with these events. The 1964 Alaska earthquake generated tsunamis that killed people as far away as California. Emergency management officials coordinated evacuations in vulnerable coastal areas. Now, let's talk about the science behind why this earthquake was so devastating. An 8.8 magnitude earthquake releases about 1,000 times more energy than a 6.8 magnitude quake. The Richter scale is logarithmic, meaning each whole number increase represents a 10-fold increase in ground motion and about a 32-fold increase in energy release. To put this in perspective, this earthquake released roughly the same amount of energy as 32 billion tons of TNT exploding simultaneously. That's enough energy to power the entire United States for about 3 days. When that much energy was released underwater, it didn't just shake the ground. It displaced massive amounts of water. Think of it like a giant underwater landslide happening in seconds. All that displaced water had to go somewhere, and it spread out as tsunami waves. In deep ocean water, these waves traveled at incredible speeds, up to 500 miles per hour. But they were actually quite low, maybe only a few feet high. A ship in the deep ocean might not have even noticed them passing underneath. But as these waves approached shallow coastal waters, physics took over. The waves slowed down dramatically but grew much taller. It was like squeezing a garden hose. The same amount of water had to go through a smaller space, so it built up and became more powerful. The real danger came from the fact that a tsunami isn't just one wave. It's a series of waves that can continue for hours. Sometimes the first wave isn't even the largest. The later waves can be bigger and more destructive, which is why evacuation orders often remained in effect long after the first waves arrived. What was remarkable about this event was how quickly the international warning system responded. Within minutes of the earthquake, data was being shared between seismic monitoring stations across the Pacific. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, located in Hawaii, began issuing alerts almost immediately. This system included a network of dart buoys, deep ocean assessment and reporting of tsunamis, positioned throughout the Pacific. These buoys detected tsunami waves as they passed and relayed real-time data back to warning centers, allowing scientists to refine their predictions about wave heights and arrival times. The economic impact of this event was felt across the Pacific. In Hawaii alone, the tourism industry, which brings in over $17 billion annually, dealt with massive disruptions. Hotels evacuated guests, flights were canceled or delayed, and cruise ships altered their routes. Japan's coastal industries, including fishing and shipping, shut down operations in affected areas. Ports were cleared, and vessels headed to deeper water where they would be safer from the tsunami waves. The psychological impact shouldn't be underestimated either. For many people in Japan, this event brought back traumatic memories of the 2011 tsunami. Mental health services were activated alongside the physical emergency response. Seismologists warned that strong aftershocks were likely to continue for days or even weeks. Some of these aftershocks could have been powerful enough to generate additional tsunami waves, so coastal communities needed to remain vigilant. The international response was swift and coordinated. Countries around the Pacific shared data, resources, and expertise. This kind of cooperation was crucial because tsunamis don't respect national borders. They're a truly global threat that requires a global response. This event led to renewed discussions about tsunami preparedness and early warning systems. While the technology existed to detect these events quickly, getting that information to people in remote coastal areas remained a challenge. Climate change also added new complications. Rising sea levels meant that tsunami waves could penetrate further inland than they would have in the past. Coastal development in many areas had also increased the number of people and amount of infrastructure at risk. This earthquake served as a stark reminder of the incredible forces at work beneath our planet's surface. The Pacific Ring of Fire remains one of the most geologically active regions on Earth, and events like this are unfortunately not rare. They're part of the natural process of tectonic plate movement that's been going on for millions of years. But what was remarkable was humanity's ability to detect, predict, and respond to these events. The fact that we could detect an earthquake in Russia and predict when the resulting tsunami waves would reach Hawaii, down to the minute, represented an incredible achievement in science and international cooperation. For everyone in the affected areas, the message from authorities was clear. Take these warnings seriously. Don't go to the coast to watch the waves. That's incredibly dangerous. Follow evacuation orders, and don't return to coastal areas until authorities give the all clear. The response to this event showed both the power of nature and the power of human preparation and cooperation. While we can't prevent earthquakes and tsunamis, we've developed remarkable systems to detect them early and coordinate responses across vast distances. This event reminded us that we live on a dynamic planet where massive forces are constantly at work beneath our feet. But it also showed how far we've come in our ability to understand, predict, and respond to these natural disasters. If you found this breakdown of this major seismic event helpful, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth coverage of natural disasters and Earth science. Thanks for watching, and remember, events like this show us the importance of being prepared and taking natural disaster warnings seriously.